it's good to continue. Basically, that's supposed to be the whole session, like a very direct discussion. So if you guys already started, let's go ahead. But let's please use the microphone as we're filming, so it's good to have also sound. It's on.
Okay. And so a lot of that transformation that I've had to do at Fortune is teaching them to be digital first. How do they know what they want to build, and getting used to working with development teams. What do you mean I get software every 2 weeks? No. Aren't you supposed to get all my ideas, tell me that it's $500,000 and come back to me in a year? And it's like, no. It's $30,000 a month, and I'm going to give you software every 2 weeks. Right? And that's the part that they don't tell you, is that I can build till the end of time, but if I don't teach them how to build and how to receive, then you don't have a business.
And how do you then evaluate? How do you compare? I mean, who are your peers, if any, or how do you measure the achievement you're doing compared to? Not only to the management, to the owner of I understand it's a private owner of the company. I mean, how do you show the results you are delivering are actually appropriate? If you do you get the question?
Yeah, no, I do. Well, the first is not mean-spirited of me, but 17 of our sister publications out of Time Inc. have failed in 5 years.
Okay.
Right? And this is a particularly U.S. thing that might not resonate over here, but we have a magazine called In Style, women's fashion. It's a competitor to Cosmo. Huge magazine, failed. Right? It shuttered, went digital only. But if you talk about sort of hard metrics that I can provide to ownership and that we've talked about, a couple of things. First, everything I've delivered over 5 years on time and on budget. People haven't always enjoyed the process, but you can get results or you can have a good time, sometimes not both. But the work that we've done and the investments that we've done in technology have tripled traffic to the website and doubled digital revenue. So in 2019, when I started at Fortune Magazine, print was still doing more revenue than digital. That is not the case anymore by leaps and bounds. The second is we have been profitable 3 years in a row. So we've built and run a profitable media company in 2024. If you read the news, there was a news article not too long ago. If billionaires can't save media, who can? And it was about all of the billionaire-owned publications that are failing, like the Washington Post. You look at the news about that, it's just insane. So we've built a digital-first business that is profitable, that is growing in revenue and scale. We've launched 3 new startups. We've established multiple new revenue lines, and so if ownership sort of gives me a hard time, it's about not going faster and bigger, but not about the results.
Can I ask another?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious also about the talent, because obviously there's a huge battle about how do you secure having the best talent working. Can you incentivize them? Of course, one thing is money, but do you also have like option schemes for those startups you're having, or are they like just hired guns? Because basically, isn't it difficult to keep talented?
So I'll tell you a quick story about when I took the job. I took the job in 2019. And they misjudged the initial budgets about what it would take to build it. My war chest to get started was almost nothing. And I couldn't get people to take the jobs. I couldn't hire in New York. New York is a very expensive city to hire in. I didn't have enough money. And I went and I had lunch with my mentor. And I was sitting down and I was complaining. And she was like, "Stop whining." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "You don't understand New York." And I was like, I do not. I do not. And she's like, all of New York is a competition. Everybody in New York is competing for the same taxi cabs. They are competing for the same reservations that we're sitting at now. They are competing for the same employees. They are competing for the same jobs. How are you going to stand out? And I changed exactly what I was doing, and instead of trying to offer money, I offered everybody the hardest fucking job they were going to have. I was like, look, this is nearly impossible. I've had people turn me down. They think this can't be done. I'm going to prove all of the haters wrong, and I'm going to do it. If you want the ability to directly contribute, if you want to be part of this, if you want the opportunity to have impact, you can come work for me. I can't pay you as well as Google or Facebook. If you want money, go somewhere else. Right? But if you want the ability to influence, come here. And we've built really good teams across the business because we've pitched the idea that Fortune is a 95-year-old startup. Most startups, because we operate like a startup, because it's only 5 years old. Fortune Media Corporation USA is only 5 years. But most startups don't have a piece of intellectual property like the Fortune 500 and 90 years of magazine experience, and that's a great asset to work with, and that's gotten us really good talent.
So basically, you're working as a startup, because that is what the best startup I know are doing. They are having these talented people telling me on a task impossible, more or less impossible, but some of them they can add that element of the option scheme, whatever, or warrants or whatever, what have you. But if I believe that many young people, and being 61, everybody else in this room is young, I can say, of course it turns you on getting challenges. Of course, I think that's super interesting. But please. Share the mic. I don't want to take all the...
Any other questions in the audience? Don't be shy. The ice has been broken. Camera is just on us, so no worries. We have a question there.
Yeah, so thanks. During your talk, you mentioned that you basically trained an LLM on all of this data that you showed, but you probably did a fine-tuning of some sort, right? Or can you elaborate on the process?
I can do a little. I am a high-level technologist. I joke that sometimes my title is either Chief Technology Officer, Chief Product Officer, or Chief Digital Officer. It depends on the meeting. So our partners at Accenture and my AI teams did most of that. But so they are trained on it. So you have Common Crawl corpus in the Mistral and the Mixtral LLMs. They are trained on, and then the sets of guardrails and fine-tuning on top of that. There's actually a small white paper on it that we have that you can read. So there's a lot in there, and we had to do a lot of fine-tuning because there are things that you don't think about when you try and use your own content, especially content as old as Fortune's. So, and the U.S. is a particularly sensitive place about this. There are words we don't use anymore that are in older business magazines, right? If I make a sort of a clean joke, right, we don't call receptionists secretaries anymore. Sort of derogatory things for other countries were just very commonplace, right? So you could have an article from 1955 about Harley Davidson lobbying the government for taxes against Jap steel or Jap bikes, right? And so you have to worry about the LLM coming back with some of those things. So there was a lot of guardrails that we had to do to worry about some of the content.
Okay, understood. Can I go for one more?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Right. There was also an interesting part where you mentioned that you kind of somehow make sure that the data that you get and the data that you show is always kind of correct, while the question might be wrong. I didn't quite understood how you managed to do that during the talk. Could you elaborate?
So it's taking the natural language search and translating that into Python code that's pulling a SQL query against assets in an S3 bucket. So whatever you ask for is translated to code that is pulling a data source. You can pull the wrong data. That's different than a GPT-like style response that's just coming up with a token, right? You can train it on the number, but it can get the number wrong. And that's something that we found is actually hugely problematic, because if you say, pull me revenue of the tech companies in the Fortune 500 in 2024, that's a SQL code that says select where industry, software, so-and-so, and it's pulling a number and just visualizing it. If you do that with the LLM, it will make shit up left and right. Right, or if even if it's directionally close, it's not accurate, right? So if it like 140 million could be 40 million, it could be 120 million. It will give you different answers every time. That's why going with the sequel poll was a little more effective, or actually a lot more effective.
Yeah, understood. And the last question, promise, is regarding the data visualization, right? So I understood that you basically ended up, making this drop-down thingy, and in that case, I don't really see a difference between just basically calling a function, right, and using an LLM.
You don't have to use that. That's we actually put that in at the very end because we put it in as a set of training wheels like you would have on a child's bicycle so that people could learn what a properly structured question was or what one of the biggest problems was the nomenclature, right? Understanding the difference between an industry or a sector and what of the 26 data points were done. So it's sort of like a cheating mode to allow people to learn how to use it. And then after they had learned how to use it, we assume that they won't. So it's not the default experience. If you see the app, there's a tab that comes up that says Get Inspired, and it has prompts that have pre-generated things that pop that up. That's what I talk about, engineering around problems with your app, right? This is what you do when you build really fast.
Okay, got it. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
I have a bonus question.
Of course.
About this dialogue being so politically correct, sometimes it makes me sick. I was just wondering, the other day on LinkedIn there was like this dialogue among people on the platform that why people are still asking for a photo on a CV. And I said, what the fuck? I mean, people do business with people they like. Why? I understand that in some countries it's even forbidden. It's not legal to ask for a picture. I mean, am I a dinosaur in that perspective? I mean, what is the state in the US? Are people not including a picture on the?
No, that is it is. I have not seen that. In fact, I always make jokes about my tattoos and my earrings. My tattoos and my earrings are job security. Wait for it. These keep me from ever having a job I don't want. Right? Because if and I mean and this is a big thing, right? When I interview, when I interviewed at Fortune, I don't dress like this. I try and dress like a grown adult and a businessman. But with my suits, I have suits with slightly shorter sleeves, so that way I can show 2 inches of tattoos. I want to make sure that they understand that this is what I look like, and I actually give this as a testament to our CEO who hired me, Alan Murray. He's a famously accomplished journalist. He actually viewed hiring me as a source of diversity. Because, and you probably know this with all the companies you invest in, it is very rare that you see a Texan biker, former Marine, in the C-suite, let alone as a CTO, right? And so, understanding that diversity can be race, ethnicity, country of origin, or socioeconomic background or upbringing, and having different points of view are really important. And I think the U.S., to be very specific, I haven't seen a picture on a CV in a very long time, and for us at Fortune, diversity is a bit of an obsession, right? Like making sure that we have a really good representative group. I almost think we look more for diversity than against it.
No, but I fully understand what you're saying. I'm just saying you'll meet initially anyway. So I mean, why the fuck don't have a picture? Because you can signal, and I would love to. I don't care about people's color, religion, sexual gender. I like diversity, but by not having it, it makes me more curious. And I would any day, if I should take 5 to an interview, I would always take the one who had a picture.
The problem with that is 2 things. First, unconscious bias. Right, the things, right? Maybe somebody doesn't like fat people, right? Maybe somebody doesn't like pretty people. We've had situations where, I've seen hiring managers want to hire the pretty girl over somebody more qualified, right? So
You should get rid of the manager.
that's the second problem, and this is a thing for executives and leaders. The bigger your company is, the less line of sight you have to what your hiring managers are doing, right? And the harder it is to spot the hiring managers that are doing that. And so if you keep it blind, you're at least knocking down one barrier. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
All right. Any other questions? All right.
Come over here.
Just pass it back and forth.
Yeah, I'll just go for one more if I can, and change of topic and bit of off topic, I guess.
Sure.
You've made quite a few references to like cyberpunk, and like some even in the titles and so on. So I just interested for you to basically reflect on the future and whether it will, or it's kind of seems to be going that way.
So, yeah. So I have read Cyberpunk since it existed, and let me answer your question this way. In 1984, William Gibson coined the term cyberspace in his book Neuromancer. Let me tell you the plot of the story for those of you who haven't read it. The plot of the story is about a corporate AI that hires a group of hackers, provides them with state-sponsored malware to break it free of its mainframe and release it to the internet. Right about now, that doesn't sound like fucking science fiction. Right? Seriously, like I read this book in 1984. I reread it once or twice a year, and when I repeated it like that for the first time, I was like, wow. And so I'm not going to get into whether or not I think AGI is really going to happen, but I do think that a lot of what happens in the cyberpunk books, the ideas of corporate archopolises and the large providers, becoming as powerful as nation states, man, that's already happening. You know that dude Elon Musk? Dude, he can turn off the internet around the world. He can win or lose wars based on satellite uplink, right? And you think about that much power in a private citizen and corporate entities. So yeah, it's happening. It's happening, and ain't nothing stopping that one.
Right. Yes, we have time for one more question. Gentleman there in the back.
Thank you. You talked a lot about diversity, and we already seen different points of view from, let's say, the European continent and the American continent. How do you tackle the need for diversity? Because the issue of political correctness is totally different around the world. You have different standards in the US, different standards in the European Union, Asian continent, Arab world. And what do you think is the solution for the future? Is it trying to educate all the world to align to a certain, let's say, minimum standard, or to localize and adapt your solution, in this case, Fortune, towards the Asian market, the Arab market, European market? Thank you.
It's a really great and complex question. I think I'll say a couple of things about it, and it's slightly tangential, but it was an epiphany that I had when I was the CTO of 3 Pillar Global, right? I had nearly 1,000 developers in 5 countries around the world, and I realized at that point in time that the most spoken language in the world is not Mandarin. It's English as a second language. I don't have to say that in this room. And what dawned on me there is that the onus of being understood was on me, not the person I was talking to that English was their second language. And there's a lot of metaphor there for meeting people where they are. And I think that cultural standards are important and respecting cultures and that people have beliefs. I don't subscribe to political correctness, but I do subscribe to good behavior. And good behavior is respecting that other people do things differently. And I won't get into a lot of religion, but if you look at religion, somebody's wrong, right? If you have 40 religions and 40 religions say I am right, then 39 of them are wrong. But you don't know which one till you die, right? So you don't actually get to find out the punchline to that story. And so over the years, I've found it really important to educate my teams on respecting the culture that they're interacting with or that they're in, right? If I go to India, I need to be respectful of that and not ask them for a hamburger or sort of meat. If I come to Eastern Europe, I have to understand that sometimes there are off-color jokes that we wouldn't make in the U.S. If an Eastern European team comes over to visit in the U.S. and they make an off-color joke, I would kindly remind them that we don't do that here, right? And so I think just understanding and respecting a culture and not imposing your values on them, but asking them to respect the values of the place that they're in is key.
Jonathan, on that positive note, thank you so much for your presence at Techsylvania and for the very straight-up answers in this Q&A session. And thank you, everyone, for being here and the questions.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.